What's going on, everybody? This is Moose, Brian, and Troy here from OccupyFantasy.com at OccupyFantasy on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm your host, Moose, at CFB_Moose on Twitter is where you can find me, co-founder and data guru here at OccupyFantasy.com. At the bottom right of your screen, at the top right of your screen, we have our co-founder, CEO, and $100,000 Richard from MMA last night, Brian, at BrianJesterFF on Twitter. How's it going, man?
What's up, Moose? Yeah, definitely feeling a little better this morning, and had to wear the Chaos shirt on stream right after last night's craziness in MMA. So yeah, I'm here, and the grind never stops. So ready to talk about some baseball.
Absolutely. And to help us parse through the chaos today, on the left side of your screen, we have our MLB writer, Troy. What's up, Troy? How's it going, man?
What's up? Congrats on your ping, Brian. And should be a fun slate today for MLB.
Appreciate it, Troy.
Definitely. So let's just jump right into it, Troy. The daily plug's up on the website, occupyfantasy.com is where you can check it out. Just went live right before we went live. So kind of tell me, Troy, what's your overall thoughts on the slate? Are there any groups of tiers of stacks that stand out? Kind of like what's your first thoughts on the slate?
Yeah. So as you'll see in the plug, four stacks really stand out today. That would be the Braves, Rockies, Cubs, and Giants. And according to their ownership on the field, looks like we're in a pretty good spot to be playing them in high-risk contests.
Awesome. Yeah, Brian, I know you've had some success. Ken's had some success with playing those high stacks with a little bit low ownership. So I'm guessing you're going to be playing something with high-risk contests like in that type of sense today.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing we've been talking about on these streams where we try to eliminate some of the highest owned stacks. But this one's really interesting because on most slates, we get pretty clear standout teams that are near the top as far as ownership goes. And maybe most you can bring up the stack dashboard and we can illustrate this a little bit. Because Troy, right, like on some of the past slates this week, we've seen teams with like 100% plus cumulative ownership. If you look at today, right, some of the top teams are only like 50 to 60%, and it's not a 12 or 13 game slate, it's a 9-game slate. So I was wondering how you think about the ownership today. Do you really think it's going to be that spread out?
Yeah, the ownership is looking really flat according to our stuff. Usually there's like one or two teams that just stand out way above the field that you can just usually fade pretty easily, and that doesn't look like that's the case today.
Yeah, so I have the stack dashboard up here, Brian. There's the top 4 teams according to our OF Index rank: Atlanta, Colorado, Chicago Cubs, and San Francisco. Now, I actually wanted to ask, either of you all can answer. I was looking at the forecast and on the weather dashboard. Looks like it's going to rain a lot in Chicago. Do you think that at the Chicago game, do you think that's going to affect? Do you think that's something that we should fade, or should we embrace some chaos there?
Well, I think I'll start and I'll say that our good friend at excuse me, good friend at Rotogrinders, Kevin Roth, who puts out the free forecast every day that we look at, that we always refer people to. He says that a delay wouldn't shock him, and probably more of a late start. And but either way, the game should play 9 without concern. So that's fine for us. Troy, what's more interesting to me here is the wind blowing out in Wrigley Field, 25 miles an hour out to left center. Gusts maybe even higher. And Troy, Wrigley Field's one of those fields where wind impacts home runs the most.
Yeah, if we can get the wind blowing out during this game, that would be huge for Cubs stacks.
Yeah, exactly. So if we look at the weather dashboard here, we'll see I have it sorted by game time. This pit at Chicago games right now, 17 miles an hour in our dashboard, but like I said, it should be a lot higher, closer to game time, and there's also going to be gusts as well. Even though it does say it has that negative percent towards batters, that's just because of the rain. But Brian, I could definitely see this being one of those chaos stacks where if we hope for the delay, goes by past the rain. Because I was looking at the forecast, looks like the rain's supposed to stop around 4 p.m. They get a little bit of delay in, and the wind's still blowing out there. They're going to have a lot more reduced ownership, and I think that's a good leverage spot there.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the field does back off them a little bit because they may see the weather, they may see the yellow tag on Rotogrinders or the little rain symbol on DraftKings, whatever it may be. Like we'll take any ownership we get on that. And I'm actually looking at the live odds screen now because, and you can attest to this, Moose, in the betting markets, right? Normally we get games at Wrigley Field. The totals won't come out until much later. because books are scared of what that weather forecast is going to be because it does impact the game so much. If you look at today's games, you see a lot of the game totals between 7 and 9, but you do see that Cubs game up to 10 runs, which should indicate that the win should be a pretty good factor for hitters.
Exactly, yeah. And again, if you can get a total of 10 and all the other games around between 7 and 9, that's definitely something you want to attack there. Now, Troy, I'll bring this over to you. Do you think the Cubs can be do you think they can be your primary stack? Is that something that you're looking for, or is that something where you want to have your secondary stack or handful of one-offs from there? Or, yes, tell me how you would play them.
Yeah, you could definitely use them as a primary stack or a secondary stack. I like them on DraftKings as a primary stack with the Braves as a secondary because the Braves have some really cheap options. Marcell Ozuna, Adam Duvall, and Manny Pena that you can kind of fill in for cheap and target the Cubs more heavily.
Okay. Yeah, and again, one of the good things about our Occupy model here is you can filter by team. So I'm filtering out in the batters tab the Braves, and yeah, they do have a lot of cheap options with a relatively high OF index and at around the top of the order too. So yeah, so that's really good that you can fit those in as well. Question here from Nick says, "What's going on, y'all? Good to see a fellow new Occupy staff member on the stream. Let's win some giblets. San Francisco and Atlanta for the win." So Brian, I'll ask you this: how is San Francisco looking for you?
Yeah, it's another team that ranks really highly, and as Chris and Troy put in the plug every day, they have that correlation chart, and we see that OF index and team totals by Vegas markets are two of the best predictors of stack performance. And ideally, we get overlap there when the field, for some reason, isn't on them. And we actually see that with San Francisco today, where they have the 4th highest stack ranking in our stack dashboard from an OF index perspective. They have the 3rd highest team total for the day. It's actually the 2nd highest on the slate. Yet their ownership is minuscule, just 20% cumulative on DraftKings, 32% on FanDuel. So for whatever reason, the field is not flocking towards San Francisco when all of our indicators say that we should. So to me, when we're looking for low-owned stacks, that's kind of the perfect storm because Troy, I know as you've been writing the plug, right? We get plenty of days where we get a 20% owned Baltimore stack with a 28th ranked team total, or KC or whoever else, right? It's a lot easier to stomach these low-owned stacks when they have high totals in the markets, right?
Yeah, I'd also like to note that Yohan Adams, who's pitching for the Nationals, is the worst-ranked starter in the model, which is another great sign for Giant stacks.
Nice. That's always good to see. When you have this top stack model and you look at the pitchers, is it one of those high risk things where the pitcher is at the top of the model and you got to hope for chaos, or if he's just like the worst pitcher ever and you're like, okay, this is great, I like this one.
Yeah, because normally, dude, right, it's like the Robbie Ray scenario, or like whoever else we see where they're not, and usually because our pitching model is so on point, it's usually the pitchers that win out in those scenarios. So I would much rather see a low owned stack with a low ranked pitcher for sure.
Yes, definitely. Ken says here, are there any concerns about Giolito being on a pitch count?
So he was activated off the injured list today. Troy, have you heard anything about him possibly being limited?
I have not heard anything about him being limited now.
Cool. I'll do a quick search here while we're on the stream, see if I can find anything.
Yeah, I'm doing the same.
And then, what's up, Chris? Chris is in the chat. Says, Yaz COVID IL for San Francisco, by the way.
Yeah, it's COVID season all over again. So, yeah, Yastrzemski will be out of the lineup. That'll knock them down a little bit. Let me see here. I'm gonna look on my end.
Yeah, I think the Giants lineup still isn't out yet. They're probably scrambling, trying to figure out what they're gonna do with that situation. So make sure to keep an eye on that lineup first before lock.
Yeah, that sucks because Yastrzemski is actually the 2nd ranked Giants hitter at 7.3 OF index. So I imagine their stack ranking will take a little bit of a hit once he's out of the lineup.
Yeah, and you can check in the model. We do have this P or check mark here that'll say if a lineup is probable or confirmed. Once you see that check mark, you're all good to go. What's up, T Nasty here in the chat? Again, if we're here until 12:30, so if you have any comments, questions, concerns, how to play certain contests, how to fit certain stacks together, definitely go ahead and ask. That's why we're here, Moose, Brian, and Troy. So let's see here. That's all the questions that I see so far. Troy, I'm going to ask you a question. I have the stack dashboard back up here. I know we've talked about some of these top 4 stacks, the Braves, the Cubs, the Giants. Is there anyone a little bit farther down that, I'm looking at some of these teams that have reverse line movement, maybe Houston, Detroit. Do you think any of those teams below those top 4 or 5 can get you there, or should we really be focusing on just those top 4?
Yeah, I think Houston and Detroit are good plays. They're also showing for more ownership than most of the lineups above them. So ideally, I'd be sticking to the top four. St. Louis as well, showing as not too highly owned. But it looks like the top of our stacks dashboard is where you want to be today.
Makes sense to me. Ken says here, other than Bryce Elder, are there any pitchers in the 5 to 8K range to roster? So I'll go ahead over to the pitching dashboard, and I'm guessing he means on DraftKings. But if anyone wants to answer that for him,
Troy, you want this one? You want to take a shot at these 5Kers?
Yeah, Bryce Elder's definitely looking like the best 5K option. So if you do want a cheap SP2, he's probably your best bet. We also have Chris Archer and Justin Steele as options as well.
Man, it's tough down there. I think I'm looking at Chad Kuhl and JT Brubaker, who are 5,500 and 5,700. I mean, it's bad. At least Kuhl has the strikeout per innings pitch threshold above 1 that we're looking for. Who else is down there? God damn, it's bad down there. I mean, it's really, it's right. So it's Elder, Kuhl, or Brubaker. I guess I'd rather play Steele or Archer, but even Steele is in that Wrigley Field weather game where he could give up 4 bombs, right? So I don't know, man. It's tough down there. I guess you just eat the chalk with Elder probably.
Most of these guys we're stacking against, so you probably don't want to be playing them. You should probably spend up a little bit or just play Bryce Elder.
Right. That's a good point too.
yeah, I mean, I'm looking here, and the only person in that range, Nick Lodolo, is his strikeout prop is 5.5. Everyone else's is 4.5. I guess maybe you can take that for what it's worth.
I mean, he's just gonna go 5 Ks, 5 walks, 5 earned runs, right? Like
Yeah.
that's he's gonna get the triple double with 5s.
Yeah, definitely. Remy, what's up, man? He says thoughts on a pirate stack for a DraftKings GPP. Are they worth a primary or a secondary stack? We'll see here that Pirates are near the bottom of the stack dashboard. Troy, would you be playing them in GPPs today?
I don't think I would be playing the Pirates today. They rank pretty low in every category on the stacks dashboard, so you can probably look elsewhere.
Makes sense to me. Cool. Yeah, so let's see here. Brian, I actually have a question for you because I know you've been playing the 3 max contest, haven't you?
Yes, the 3. Well, it depends on the day, but yeah, the 3 max or the 4 max on DraftKings.
So in a situation like this where we have 4, 5-ish stacks, kind of how would you be setting? I know we've talked about this a couple times before, but would you be setting a different primary stack and like kind of keep your same pitching core, or say like you have one lineup with Atlanta primary, one with Cubs, one with St. Louis, wherever, and then just sprinkle out whoever you can find in your primary stacks there?
Yeah, so it's been pretty formulaic for me to this point, and really what I'm trying to focus on now is trying to pick the right stacks, which I think we all are, right, every single day. But really, I mean, a day like today looks really perfect, and I don't want to call my shot here on air, but I think there might be some nice wins later today because I'm looking to play 4 stacks in my 4 lineups. There are 4 stacks that stand out compared to these other teams, and get each of those stacks into your lineups. And we know the best pitching plays. We've talked about how well the model has done projecting pitching props, how well it does just in general because it's such a projectable position. So we're able to find the highest scoring pitchers on most slates. So, have a core of 4 to 5 pitchers, rotate them through, and then rotate these stacks in. Try to get different secondary stacks as well. Just get a good mix and ideally get the right combination. So, in that type of strategy, I don't mind including a team like Pitt. I know they're super low ranked, but you see the team total move in their favor, and it's kind of one of those chaotic situations where if the win all of a sudden is just like super blowing out to left field or whatever, and then everyone benefits in that game, and then maybe we get the Pirates, getting a couple home runs and at their cheap prices, then that's all they need to return value.
That makes sense. And then let's say one other thing. So let's say you have a primary Atlanta stack, just saying because they're number 1 in the model. In your other lineups, would you be doing Atlanta secondary stacks or Atlanta one-offs for that, or do you kind of just try and isolate everything completely?
Yeah, so a lot of the research I've done this past offseason and that we've done as a team show that, and really, here's a little bit of a cheat code for those of you watching and a little peek behind the curtain into what some of the top pros do, because not every pro plays MLB DFS the same, and not every pro plays a handful of lineups optimally. but there are pros out there that continually crush 3-max and 4-max contests in different sports. So we looked at kind of what their exposures were in 3-max contests over the last couple of years. And really most of what you end up seeing is what we talked about, a different stack in each lineup, a different primary stack, right? But usually they'll double up on one of those stacks as a secondary stack. So like what you just said, if you really like Atlanta or they fit really well with other teams, you'll put Atlanta, Colorado, Chicago, San Francisco in each of your 4 lineups. And then one of those other lineups will also have a secondary Atlanta stack, if that makes sense.
That does, yeah. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for the insight. I appreciate it. Troy, I asked you this one from Lucas. Is any reason to fade Cole in high risk?
I wouldn't fade him necessarily. On FanDuel, definitely not, because he's got a really good price tag on there. DraftKings, you could play, say, Giolito McClanahan.
Okay, yeah, because looking here, 10-4 on DraftKings, just 8,800 on FanDuel. Definitely one of the cheaper options on FanDuel, so I don't think you can fade him there. The Prince says, looking for a FanDuel value play. You're looking for a pitcher or hitter. But Troy, do you have any good values over on FanDuel?
Yeah, so value hitters on FanDuel, our top guy in the plug is Mike Zunino of Tampa Bay. We've also got a cheap Cubs guy in Rafael Ortega, who's just above mid price.
Okay, yeah. I see Zunino 2,100. Yeah, so those are some good. Yeah, those are some good value bats there. I would definitely fit them in. Brian, I'm always going to get excited if we can recommend an 8 or 9 hitter. I can get that little wraparound stack. Yeah, reduced ownership. I got to play it.
I mean, and Zunino too, right? We've had pretty decent success calling out Zunino plays in the past. So yeah, you get Zunino in the 8-hole, and most of you gonna wrap it back around with. Let me see. And they got Randy batting leadoff, so the little 8-1 stack for you there. I mean, FanDuel's pricing is ridiculous. Troy, I don't know if you've been playing FanDuel much this year, but the pricing is crazy. Like we talked about the Cubs, right? Highest team total on the slate, wins blowing out, and their leadoff hitter who ranks well is just 2,200, which is just insane.
Yeah, the pricing is always really soft on FanDuel, so you can really jam in some good plays over there.
Yeah, I've always had more success on FanDuel MLB than DraftKings MLB just for that standpoint. It seems like you can basically do whatever you want. It almost seems like salary's fake there.
It is. It's almost like USFL pricing, which Troy got close yesterday, man. I saw you top 10 at GPP. How'd that turn out for you?
Yeah, not bad. I didn't know there was a Friday game, so I had to play the Saturday only slate, but I made out pretty well.
Nice. That's always good.
I mean, Chris has been doing a great job with the plug, highlighting some good values and some good pivots, because we still see, and I know this is an MLB stream. If you guys have questions, let us know. But we still see just crazy ownership discrepancies. Because in the 3-3-3 yesterday, I had Maurice Alexander, who was going to be on the most pass-heavy offense at 1%. Like some of the slate's leading scorers, like week 1 in week 2, are still 1-2% owned, which is nuts.
Yeah, and again, I know this is an MLB stream, so if you have questions, definitely go ahead and ask. But I think it's at that point where like USFL like doesn't have good reporting, or like you have to really search for it and really do your work for it, and most people aren't going to do that, just being completely honest. And so the harder you work on those niche sports, the easier it is to find those edges, and you can tell just by the ownership that people aren't going to work as hard as we are.
Got that right.
Nick says Garrett Cole isn't the same without the sticky stuff. Thoughts on fading Cole for Wainwright on FanDuel at half the ownership? I know Troy, you said you probably wouldn't fade Cole over on FanDuel, but could you substitute him in for Wainwright?
Yeah, you could play Wainwright. The thing about Cole is he does have a pretty low strikeouts per his production today. The Guardians do not strike out that much, so if you don't like Cole in the spot, you can definitely play Wainwright.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to ask, Troy, what do you think, like that type of information, right? Because that's such a huge story with Cole without the sticky stuff, right? And his performance afterwards. How much do you weight things like that in baseball? Because, I mean, you follow baseball very closely. There's tons of data to back up a lot of our projections and a lot of strategies. But, things like that mostly aren't accounted for in the numbers. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how you manage news like that.
Yeah, personally, I don't really care about the sticky stuff narrative. I'll be hammering Cole on FanDuel today. I just think there's so many confounding variables that it's really hard to say that it was just the sticky stuff that is leading to his poor performance. He still projects really well. I'll be firing him up.
All right, good to know. I mean, that's good enough for me. And Moose, I guess if the sticky stuff was impacting that much, he wouldn't be a minus 220 favorite, right?
Yeah, exactly. You would think that this early in MLB, where there's actually like a lot of money going in, that the series bettors would be able to get down a lot more if the sticky stuff wasn't affecting him. So.
Oh,
So
and
definitely.
you guys can clip this and replay it at 1:30 p.m. after he gives up 4 home runs in the first
Exactly.
inning.
Definitely. T-Nas says, would you use Colorado as a secondary stack due to the low team total?
I think that's probably a good idea in some like obviously I have a more high risk approach, but I think it makes some sense, right? Because if there are teams like that, you know, if you 3-man stack them, then you only need a few points for them to be worthwhile and let your main stack go off. Whereas if you're 5-man stacking them and they score, 8 to 10 points each, you're probably not going to win many high risk contests. So I get that. Yeah, I really, especially if you're making one lineup, I really don't mind that approach.
Makes sense to me. While not necessarily related to the DraftKings main slate, but I was looking at some props, and I actually wanted to ask Troy, I guess Brian, you too, because with Robbie Ray being hashtag not good, we haven't projected for like .7 strikeouts per inning pitch. His strikeout prop is 6.5, which seems like really, really high. I was thinking about jamming the under. Do either of you have an opinion on that? Because I know Robbie Ray can sometimes suck.
That's an interesting, yeah, his projection is really low. I'm going to check in the back end why it's so low. That's interesting. Because, I
Yeah.
mean, Troy, he's normally a high K pitcher, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking now, and it looks like he's facing the Royals. And they do
Yeah.
strike out a fair bit against left-handers, so I'm not sure why the number would be that low.
I'll take a look here in the model, boys, and on the back end to see if I can find anything for you, Moose.
Cool. While we're doing that, speaking of props, Troy, is there any hitters that you like to? We usually call it our dong call, but any cheap loaned hitters that you think can hit the home run today?
As far as cheap hitters, I definitely like Marcell Ozuna against Jesus Luzardo in Miami, and also with Ozuna on DraftKings, I think Luzardo will actually probably catch some ownership. So a Brave stack will give you some additional leverage against Luzardo in that case.
Nice, Brian. Any dong calls you have?
Let's see here. So, I mean, I think we got to just, if we're going to cheat a little bit and say that Cubs-Pirates game, right? So if the wind's blowing out, maybe they're a little more likely to hit home runs there. So we got Ortega. Let me see who else here. I'm going to sort just on my end and think about the highest ISO hitters in that game. And we get 281 ISO for Patrick Wisdom, who always pops in the model for whatever reason, right? I mean, he's always
Yeah.
hitting 7th or 8th. I'll go Patrick Wisdom with a little
Okay.
281 ISO.
Makes sense to me. I was just looking. So Azuna is like plus 385 over on FanDuel to hit a home run. So that would be pretty cool. And then Brian, what was the person you said?
Patrick Wisdom, I would be shocked if he had a prop line.
Patrick Wisdom. Let's see if he has anything. So he is somehow lower owned to hit or lower projected to hit home run plus 320 over on FanDuel.
The books know. The books know about Patrick Wisdom's power.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have it sorted by ISO here on the DraftKings vein slate. I'm gonna go a little sneaky. I'm gonna say I would have to see what the lineup goes, but maybe Brandon Belt with San Francisco. That sounds like he hit the dawn call with he might be a little bit too expensive for that, but that's my pick.
I mean, we'll take it. We'll take it. And I'm looking here, Moose. I finally found, after minutes of searching, why Robbie Ray's projected so low. It's based on the Royals lineup today, and they have a decent amount of hitters who don't strike out that much, just in particular today against lefties. And I think that's a big reason, because you got to remember, and I know Ken's in the chat, and Ken talks about this, or he has talked about this in the Discord server, that the model does update strikeout projections based on opposing lineups. So you might see a guy in the morning with 1.2 K per innings pitch projection, but then the lineup comes out and that drops to 0.9. And you may think, I mean, how crazy is that? But that's why our model's so good at projecting strikeouts, because it individually fits each pitcher's projections against the opposing lineup. And if you look at the Royals lineup today in particular that's projected, they don't strike out that much. There are a couple guys above 25% against lefties, but most of these guys are 20 or lower. So that's a big reason why we see Robbie Ray's Ks per innings pitch projection so low today.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing worse than like I have my own little thing for doing K props, and then I usually don't wait until the line's confirmed to actually bet something. I'll be off doing something, and then I'll see the line, like the inning pitch, any strikeouts per inning pitch change drastically. And I was like, okay, let me go ahead and change now. And then the line moves like 40 cents, and I was like, okay, well, yeah, it shows that the lineup actually matters.
Yep.
So,
That's a really good point. And since today's Sunday, a lot of teams give their players off days, so lineups are typically looking a little bit different than they normally would be. So definitely trust the model on that one because we are accounting for all of that.
Definitely. Question here from Lucas says, are the Cubs too chalky for 5-man stacks in 3/4 max high risk?
What do you think, Troy? I mean, I see them at 46% projected cumulative on DraftKings, 54% on FanDuel. I imagine it could get higher with that team total, but I don't know, Troy. I mean, nothing shows me that any one team is going to get way too popular today, right?
They do have the highest team total on the slate, so I could see why you'd be concerned. But we were kind of saying earlier in the show that there's not one lineup that really stands above the rest in terms of ownership. So maybe if you think the Cubs are going to catch some steam, you can still play them as a 5-man, but just look for lower-owned 3-man stacks or pitchers potentially.
Yeah, or even like Moose, we just talked about Patrick Wisdom. We got him projected less than 5% in the model as an 8-hitter. I mean, you play a 5-man stack that includes a 7, 8, or 9-hitter. You're pretty much different right there. So I think that should eliminate any concern that we have.
Yeah, definitely. So we got a couple minutes left. If you all have any last lingering questions, definitely go ahead and ask. We're here for 3 minutes. Yes, Nick says Giants are really holding out as long as possible to give out their lineups. I think it was with the Nats last week. Did the same thing. Didn't release a lineup for like 15 minutes before the game or something.
Yeah, what the fuck, dude? The game's in 1 hour and they don't have a lineup out yet.
Yeah, I guess they're going through all the COVID stuff to see any close contacts or anything.
It was the Nats game, right? When like Nelson Cruz is still in the batting cage figuring out if he can play or not, and it's like 20 minutes before the game starts, like, yo, figure that shit out.
Yeah. I don't know how 5 minutes in the batting cage is gonna figure it out after an hour, but
I know.
So
I had a question, Moose, actually, because Troy, I know you follow baseball closely. I haven't looked at any prospects or anything just yet. Do you have any guys in mind? Do you play season long also? But do you have any prospects in mind that you think we'll see here in a couple weeks or a couple months that could have a big DFS impact?
Yeah, I do play season long and dynasty as well. One guy I've had my eye on, who will hopefully be called up soon, is Alec Thomas of the Diamondbacks. He's been ripping it up in AAA last year and this year, so he's got a good power, good speed. He could be really fun for DFS once he's up.
You got him stashed in your dynasty league?
Yeah, yep.
That's good. I gotta say, MLB Dynasty has definitely got to be one of the most like intense season-long things ever. I mean, Brian, you and I are in a NFL Dynasty league that's been like 15 years in the making or something like that. But we just take rookies once a year, right? we don't stash rookies that are in single A ball, right? Is that how deep yours goes, Troy?
Oh, yeah, yep.
That's crazy. That's wild. But no, that's insane. I love that. But 1 minute left or so. Troy, do you have any last lingering thoughts about today's slate?
Yeah. So I think if the sentiment around Garrett Cole is still holding, that he's not a good pitcher suddenly, I'm definitely excited to play him in my contest and hopefully get some big scores with him.
Nice. Brian, any last lingering thoughts?
I'm just excited that we don't have to play really bad teams. I know the Orioles, like people in Discord have been like, "Are you serious with this Orioles shit again?" Right, ranking in the top 5 of them all. They've been putting up 5-6 runs the last couple of games, so they haven't been completely awful. I'm just super excited that some of our top stacks today have lower ownership but higher team totals, or not just completely miserable team totals. And I've personally been losing the past couple of days, as I'm sure people have listened to our advice and followed the model have. If you're not losing 80% of days in high risk contests, you're probably not playing it correctly anyway. So I have a feeling that today's gonna be a pretty good day, and that we'll see some top 1% finishes. So I'm super pumped for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling the same way as well. And like I said, these streams always help me out as well. I get to ask you all questions. We get to hear what other questions from other people that I may not have thought of. But yeah, so that'll pretty much do it for the stream tonight. Again, we do have the plug up, occupyfantasy.com. Also have the Occupy model that ranks all the batters, hitters, the weather dashboard, the stack dashboard. We also have the live odds and the prop finder as well if you want to do that. We also have the Discord, occupyfantasy.com/Discord if you're not already a member there. We're usually in there answering questions nonstop. But until next time, Moose, Brian, and Troy from Occupy Fantasy, have a good one.